Hello and welcome to Beyond Games, the gaming YouTube channel all about what's next. And I am John Jordan. So I thought today we'd have a look at this story from The Verge, which is taking a look at Fortnite and how narrative sort of works and how story works within Fortnite. And I guess this is kind of playing on the themes of kind of metaverse, which are a key thing in gaming at the moment. And obviously kind of Fortnite and Epic Games have very much set themselves up as creating a metaverse. So what does that actually mean? Well, let's have a look in terms of story. So as the article points out, a good question to start. Why does Fortnite have a narrative? I mean, it is a battle royale game where basically people parachute onto an island or players parachute onto an island and shoot each other until one of them's the winner. What's the narrative there? But it's interesting that they've been talking to Donald Mustard, who's the chief creative officer at Epic Games. I mean, he's been in the games industry for a long time, done a lot of mobile games actually, and he's kind of smaller games before he came to Fortnite. And kind of what he's saying is that when you're thinking about a metaverse where people are just kind of playing, you're not giving them a traditional narrative kind of storyline where people are playing through a single player level. Although, as he points out, in the recent season there was a single player mission for the first time. So in something like a metaverse, you would have potentially different ways of playing that would allow you to kind of tell story in different ways. Now, obviously, story can be told, through kind of bigger events of what's happening in the game. It doesn't have to be there's some specific characters who are talking to each other and kind of what's their motivation. Story can be about other things. One of the key things that Fortnite's been doing is these big kind of live events, which are nothing to do with actually playing the game. You just go into Fortnite as a environment and you see what's going on. You don't go in there to go around kind of shooting people, which is how people have got used to Fortnite. And I guess that's the clever thing about Fortnite as a sort of metaverse is it didn't set out to be a metaverse, or if it did, that was the developers thinking. But for players, it was just like a way of playing a specific game that was fun. And then you can start to build these other things sort of around there. So, so the story is happening. You're only seeing kind of part of it or some of it. So the way that the environment in Fortnite changes through certain events is in a sense a kind of fragmented version of the story that the players see, but there is a storyline underneath that. Now, I think often that can be kind of overplayed. So I think sometimes developers can get slightly carried away with the sense they're building these very clever stuff behind the scenes, and players just actually don't really care very much. But I do think if it is done well, and I think we could probably say Fortnite is doing it about as well as we've seen so far. If you do it sort of subtly, and it doesn't matter really if the players see it until you have these sort of very big kind of events, then actually you can build some very interesting new styles of narrative. So as he points out, most linear stories are told through the lens of a character. So Star Wars is great, but it's about kind of Luke Skywalker and those particular sort of characters. And although it's branching out now into all these side stories, that's in its way that is sort of how Star Wars became a metaverse kind of launched out of that, I suppose. What's interesting with Fortnite is you didn't have that strong narrative. You had the sort of absence of narrative in the beginning, and it was so successful that then sort of narrative sort of emerged from that and is now being built upon. So the main character isn't the characters; it's the island and how the island changes. You've got things like the kind of these comets happening and stuff. And what's sort of interesting is that these kind of key things have been happening. So new locations have become available. These weird things like a black hole have kind of come in. And I guess more interestingly, when we think about what a metaverse might be, is that Fortnite is now so powerful as a brand that we're seeing these other brands kind of coming into it. So we have these Marvel stuff, and we have Terminator, God of War, Walking Dead. So and I guess when we say metaverse, that sort of means meta means sort of beyond. So probably I guess we'd all think it's going to be one metaverse. Probably not, because obviously you would think at some point there'll be a Marvel have so many characters they would have their own metaverse, but it's not to say that characters from different metaverses or different kind of IPs can't kind of come together. So I think Fortnite gives a good example of it's been the most successful mass market sort of metaverse, if you want to call it that term. where other characters come into it but don't live there. But equally, there will be other brands. Clearly, there'll be hundreds of attempts to do this, do a Fortnite sort of thing, from games companies and film companies and other sort of companies. But the way to actually keep these things interesting is to kind of not to have them as silos, but to have actually different metaverses, and then a metaverse, if you want to continue the analogy, that's overpinning it all, and stuff sort of comes in and kind of filters in and out, and that's what makes all these individual metaverses. That's how they sort of compete. So anyway, he's still saying, it's overlapping realities. So does each individual metaverse matter? Yes, they do. I think when they talk about narrative, I don't think we have to think about it even as narrative. It just is some sort of coherence that they have. The things that are happening in that universe on that island are sort of coherent in terms of their backstory and in terms of what the kind of players expect. That's the important bit. But then we can start layering on these different characters, these different kind of experiences, and even having single player kind of modes and events happening in there. So it's very much a mess. And I think it's interesting that they point out, Fortnite is an indicator, definitely with this idea of metaverses. There's nothing is very fixed in stone, certainly at the moment. And there'll be all these different things going on here, from live events to single player events to environmental storytelling, cinematics. And I guess at some point we will start to see user generated content within that as well, until you have people telling their own stories within this kind of wider universe. And I guess at that point you do start to have, I think the metaverse starts to happen when people tell their own stories in there. If it's just the developers telling stories, then that's not really any different to what we've already seen. I think really to get a proper metaverse, you have to have sort of agency and things emergent sort of narrative from the players, and you get that sort of at a very low level, I suppose, at the moment. But we need to see kind of more of that, I think, for us to call something truly a metaverse with a capital M, if I might use the analogy. Anyway, thanks for watching the video. This is Beyond Gaming, where we trying to see what's happening next for gaming, and also seeing how gaming is interacting with the non-gaming world, what we might call the normal world, although it's all become pretty much of a mush at the moment. Thanks for watching the video. Please subscribe to the channel, and see you again soon.